Last week, we were discussing the criterion of Mashiach. We discussed this from the Rambam.
Yes.
We said the Rambam says, he gives the criterion, the job description. We said the Rambam he's got like the sole authority here because he's actually the only codifier that puts Mashiach in the codification. The Rif, the Rosh, they don't do that. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't do that. So it's literally just the Rambam. So he's got the sole word because he's got the only word on the subject. And we said he gave us 5 criterion. King. We said not a king was a crown. We understand this because Rambam wrote this in exile, obviously, where he was, in Egypt. And this does not mean criterion when Melech HaMashiach is ruling the world with his glory, because then you don't need to open up a Rambam and figure out who he is. So this is literally meant for in Golus, like Rambam's time and every time since until now, when we should have the complete revelation of Mashiach, we're in Golus. We don't know who Mashiach is. So he's an incognito king, which means he's a ruler of Jewish people. Jewish people follow him like a ruler, king. Direct descendant of Shlomo ben David, Solomon the son of David, as immersed in Torah and keeping the commandments like David, his forefather, repairs the breaches in divine service and fights the wars of God. Rambam says, you find someone that fulfills those 5 criteria, he is called the Cheskas Mashiach, which means the presumed Mashiach. And we should always be able to find someone who's the presumed Mashiach, because someone must be waiting in the wings to move from presumed to the real deal if Mashiach would come right then. So we really, almost incumbent on us, is to look and find and identify the presumed Mashiach. How does he move from presumed, which we've always had, to the actual Melech HaMashiach? 3 steps, 3 more criterion. Succeeds in fighting God's wars, builds the Beis HaMikdash, gathers the Jewish people. When you're in Eretz Yisrael, with the Beis HaMikdash, with Klal Yisrael, the guy that did it, he's no longer Cheskas. This is Mashiach Vadai. The halachic term, according to the Rambam, is Mashiach Vadai, the absolute Mashiach. And again, we're not talking about a king with a crown, because obviously no Jewish Mashiach person is wearing a crown nowadays. And we're not talking about fighting wars with, RPGs, because again, that's not what Melech HaMashiach incognito is going to be doing. He's fighting wars with godliness. But as I said last week, Lubavitcher Rebbe said, when you see the fall of communism, no, it's Mashiach winning his war. So, which we saw perfectly when communism fell, because we didn't see the physical fight, but obviously there was a spiritual fight that was won, and this caused the complete breakdown, complete decapitation of this entire Soviet system. So again, as we're saying, the criterion is for now, before the complete revelation. As we said last week, we have 3 sources, the Bartanura Rus, the Stei Chemed, and the Chassam Sofer. All of them write the same thing, 3 separate people. They're not quoting each other. Each of them separately writes that there's a person in the wings, the Mashiach, the potential Mashiach. And when the ultimate moment comes, God will come to him. As we say, we'll give him the green light and send him. And then the temple will descend on Har Moriah, Mount Moriah, and Mashiach will lead all the Jews back to Israel. And at that point, when we're in Israel with the temple, we do not need to open up Maimonides, a Rambam, and check the signs. It'll be obvious to the entire world who is Melech HaMashiach. So these signs are for us now in Golus, so we can identify Mashiach before the complete revelation. So if that's true, why do you think it's important to identify him? Meaning, who cares? When he comes, we'll all know. And before he comes, who cares? It's an interesting question. Here Rambam is writing this whole thing, giving us all these signs that are only useful in Golus, only needed in Golus. When we have the complete revelation of Mashiach, nobody needs to open up a Rambam to figure out who Mashiach is. So it's for now, but what do we need it for now? Once he's revealed, we don't need it. And before he's revealed, what do we need it for?
Well, to identify potential candidates.
So why? Great. That is exactly why. Yeah. But why do you think, Yael, we need to identify potential candidates?
To have hope. I don't know.
That's a very good answer.
To have hope, I guess. To always be on the lookout.
Is a very real answer. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. If you can look, and always throughout the Jewish world, we have seen great people identify other great people. This is a potential Mashiach. We have actually seen people identify themselves as Mashiach. We've seen people identify other people as Mashiach. We have seen students identify their teachers as Mashiach. And you're right. That keeps the hope alive. If we looked around the world and we don't have anyone and we can't think of anyone, it makes it much less real to us. Much less like it's happening if I mean we believe, we know it's true of the Yud Gimel Ikrim, we're not doubters, but it doesn't seem real. So we believe in a amorphous way, as we were discussing last week. We want Mashiach to be a reality way. That's why we're spending all these weeks learning about it. So it's real to us. This is a very big piece of Judaism. It's not like, the icing on the cake, the reward that will happen whenever, but don't focus on reward, focus on serving God. No, this is part of Judaism. This is a critical part of Judaism. Like I'm saying, it's 2 out of the 13 Yud Gimel Ikrim. This is a huge piece of Judaism, and it might seem like not so real. So everything we're learning is to make it real, and definitely being able to identify, like you're saying, gives us hope. Any other ideas?
I think the fact that every person has that Mashiach quality within them,
which we do,
then the fact that these 5 criteria are outlined, it means that we're supposed to do our best to, just as we're supposed to emulate the qualities, the midos of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and we're also supposed to look and learn from everyone in Tanakh in terms of, how and what we're supposed to emulate. If these 5 criteria define Mashiach and we have a Mashiach quality within us, it means we belong doing these 5 things to the best of our ability and developing those things within us.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting. I never thought of it like that. You are right. We have what Elisa is saying. We have 5 levels of soul. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. And each level of soul connects to one ultimately great Jew who was the embodiment of that level of soul. David HaMelech was Nefesh, Eliyahu Hanavi is Ruach, Moshe Rabbeinu is Neshama, Adam HaRishon is Chaya, and Melech HaMashiach is Yechida. That's what's called Kabbalistically the Neshama Klolis, the comprehensive soul, which means that every single Jew, the core of our Nefesh is from David HaMelech's, and every single Jew is found in David HaMelech's Nefesh. And the same thing, we all have the core of Eliyahu and our Ruach. We all have the core of Moshe and our Neshama. We all have the core of Adam HaRishon and our Chaya. And we all have the core of Melech HaMashiach and our Yechida. So you are right. Every Jew has that core of Mashiach inside the highest level of the 5 levels of our soul, the Yechida. And that's very interesting to say. I mean, definitely there's the idea of us accessing our Mashiach element. And like if every Jew accesses their Mashiach element, that helps the complete revelation of Mashiach because we're each pulling out that Mashiach piece. And it's interesting to think like, okay, so let me look at these criteria. And I don't know if I can get anyone to accept me as king. And I don't know if I could get the Davidic line, but you're saying in terms of being immersed in Torah mitzvahs, fighting God's wars, helping people fix the breaches in their divine service. I mean, those things sound like it's interesting. I hear you. Yeah, Elle, what were you going to add?
Oh, I was going to say that a lot of times I think this whole Mashiach thing is a hoax. I mean, I don't think it. I know that it's not, but a lot of times I feel like it's a hoax because it's always talked about, and it's like, oh, he's coming on the first night of COVID. He's coming on the first night of Pesach during COVID. He's coming, and then like every time like there's a potential that he's coming, he doesn't come. And it's like, I don't know. There are times when I know it's not, but it's kind of like in the back of my mind, is this for real or is this just something to keep us hanging on? And I know it's for real, but it's not real until it happens, I guess. And it's going to be a whole other world that we can't fathom because it's not our reality now. So it's very abstract in that sense, I guess.
I totally hear what you're saying. And that's actually what I was saying. Maybe it's when you were in Florida that we had this discussion. So you weren't here for it. I think actually you were, now that I'm remembering. That is a reason for this class, meaning not Wednesday night class, but this course that we've been doing for many weeks that we're like almost at the end of, was really for your second point, not your first, but your first and second are very, very intertwined, which is why from the first you went to the second. And we're actually told that there are several questions every single Jew will be asked when they leave this world. And one of those questions, just a few, is
Will you yearn for Yeshua?
did you anticipate? Tzipisa. Were you mitzapeh? Mitzapeh doesn't mean, did you have a theoretical belief that Mashiach's coming and when he comes, you'll be very happy? That's not what the word tzipisa means. Tzipisa means, did you anticipate? Anticipating meaning is a proactive movement of belief and anticipation and waiting and hoping. And every single Jew that has ever lived has been asked that question, meaning every one of us get our own specific questions. But there's a few general questions, like, were you honest? That's a question that every one of us has to answer. And what we all have to answer is, did you anticipate the coming of Mashiach? Was that something that was that real to you that you anticipated it? And I appreciate the honesty of what you just said. And I don't think it's just you. As I'm saying, my thought in this class was, I want to give enough details about Mashiach that it becomes concrete. Because when Mashiach is a word, we believe in it. We're Jews. I mean, we're religious. We keep Shabbos, we keep kosher. We're not going to believe in Mashiach. You can't say I keep Shabbos kosher, but I don't do Mashiach. You can't, like, I'm not going to do that piece. I don't do Lashon Hara. You could say I strive and I'm very human and I succumb and I gossip when I shouldn't. But you can't say, well, it's not one of my 613. It's one of the 613. You're religious. You accept God. You accept his commandments. You accept that you're not allowed to gossip. And unfortunately, if you break the rules, it's a big problem. So similarly, you accept it's Judaism. Mashiach is in Torah. It's throughout the prophets. It's the Yud Gimel Ikrim. It's a question we're being asked when we pass away. It's part of Judaism. But because, like you said, it's remote, it's going to be a different world. We don't think we know that much about that world. It's like, what's it going to be? Airy-fairy? So that's why all these classes, which I tried to answer, or not that you were asking the questions, some questions you guys did ask me, and some questions, it was the questions I've been asked enough times that I know these are like common questions that I was trying to flesh out what it is. But going back to your first point, which is also very real, that you say it's hard because we believed, we've hoped. You were hoping the first night of Pesach. I was hoping the last night of Pesach of COVID. I wasn't hoping. To me, it was like reality. The word hope wasn't part of my equation. It was reality. The last day of Pesach is Mashiach's day, right? The first 2 days of Pesach are celebrating the redemption from Egypt. The last 2 days of Pesach are celebrating the redemption of Mashiach. It climaxes the last day. The Baal Shem Tov started, Sudas Mashiach. We literally eat and drink celebrating the reality of Mashiach. For sure, Mashiach's coming then. Like, it wasn't hope. It was like fact. So yes, we've been there. We've done it many times. A little older than you, so I've done it more times than you. And we still have to believe and anticipate and hope and say, okay, Hashem, for every time I was disappointed, it doesn't mean, well, therefore he's not coming. Because if that's what it means, then that also means, therefore Judaism isn't true. And if that's what that means, what are we doing? So if Judaism is true, Mashiach is real. And every time God, he didn't come, it's only more, so you owe us and it has to happen now. It's almost like when you think of these kitzin, a kitz means an end date. That there were many tzaddikim, many very, very holy Jews over the years that literally said, and this date, Mashiach is coming. Literally, they gave dates. Some gave like very specific dates. This day, this month, this year. Some gave a month and a year, like some gave years, but it was like very real. Like, these are very, very holy people that are saying these things. Not like some quack that you have no clue, you see some social media post. These were like really holy Jews. And those dates have come and gone. And the question is, well, what happened? Why they give a date in the first place if it didn't happen? And what were they giving a date for that didn't happen if they're such holy Jews? Every time a tzaddik gives a date, what that means is he sees. Just like if someone throws a ball, and if you knew enough about some of these scientific velocity, trajectory principles in physics, you could exactly pinpoint where that ball is going to land, right? You could exactly pinpoint the landing of that ball. The tzaddik, these very, very holy tzaddikim, seeing everything that was going on, seeing what the Jewish people are doing and what the world is doing and what the state of Torah mitzvahs is and everything that's been happening since the beginning of time, like those scientists that can exactly, accurately predict where that ball is going to land, they're predicting where Mashiach is going to land. Like, absolute. Like, they know that's where it's going to land. But we didn't see it. Answer given Chassidus is every date given by a true tzaddik, and all these dates we're talking about are given by true tzaddik. We're not about any, like I said, quacks here. Something happened. Mashiach landed, but not yet in the way we want. So therefore, we say it's not good enough. You know, the first Rebbe of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, gave a date. Okay, very, very high level tzaddik, gave a year Mashiach was coming, and that year came and went. And I believe who would be the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe, was not yet Rebbe, spoke to his father at that time, the Rebbe, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he said, "What happened? I mean, this was the year the Alter Rebbe gave it. Like, you know, he know what he's talking about. The year came, the year went. Where's Mashiach?" And the Tzemach said, "No, Mashiach came. This very great Torah work, the Alter Rebbe's Hasidic discourses that was being held back from being printed by the Tsarist regime for many years. We finally got it printed this year. That was Mashiach. What's Mashiach? Revelation of godliness. That revelation of godliness happened this year." And his son, who would be the Rebbe after him, responded and said, "That's not the Mashiach we want. You know, don't tell him Mashiach came because this great book got printed, even though this great book got printed, and that's amazing and wonderful. When we say Mashiach, we mean Yerushalayim, temple, all the Jews. That's the Mashiach we're looking for." So each time we go through something, it means like, okay, do I believe in Judaism? Yeah. Do I believe in God? Do I believe in Judaism? Do I keep Shabbos and kosher? Do I make myself crazy for God on so many ways and levels? Have I seen God so much in my life? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so Tzipisa Yeshua. Everything that didn't happen doesn't mean, okay, well, he was wrong also, so for sure it's not coming. It means like what he said did happen, and something, another step was achieved, and another step was achieved, and another step was achieved. And it's almost like, you know, the famous mushal, probably the Dubna Maggid, I don't know, but it sounds like one of his, of this great, 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 ugly, ugly, ugly tree in this king's courtyard, where he said, you know, whoever chops it down gets to marry my daughter. And all the strong, strong people came of the country, of the world, who knows how much you want to dress up the mushal. Nobody could chop it down. It was an impossibly thick, huge tree, probably there since creation. And everyone gave up, like, forget it. And some little weakling came in once, so like, what are you here for? He said, I want to try to chop down that tree. And they laughed at him, like, yeah, where's your little axe, you know? He goes, he gives a little, and the whole tree comes crashing down. And they're like, what magic did you just do? How did you chop down that tree? And he said, simple. I figured everyone else has done so much work. All the strongmen of the world did all the work. It must just be hanging on by a little thread. I gave that little thread push, and it came crashing down. And that's somebody's mushal for how we're supposed to understand the reality now of Mashiach. That like a lot has been done by many, many people far greater than us since the beginning of time. And they did, and they did, and they did, and they worked, and they worked. And there were people who gave their lives. We see stories of tzaddikim that literally died trying to bring Mashiach. Like, it's not like a little thing. It was a huge thing by so many great, great people doing everything above and beyond to bring Mashiach. So it's not like, so if they couldn't succeed, well, what do we think from ourselves? No. We believe in God. We believe in Mashiach. But it's like everything they did made now, it's so obviously, and that's why, you know, what was Lubavitcher Rebbe's Kate's? He never gave a date, but he always said the same thing. Now. We want Mashiach now. That was his date. Now that we have to look at our world and say, everything that was done, and we went through COVID, and we went through Black Lives Matter, and we went through October 7th, I mean, just these past few years have been so crunched with everything we've gone through. We don't believe in Mashiach, we don't believe in Judaism. We believe in Mashiach, we know it has to be now. Like you said, after the elections in New York, well, now it's really got to be now. You know, so it's not like we could flip between like, it's never going to happen. Those are like our two choices. It's never going to happen, or it's going to happen now. Those are literally your two roads. And if the road is it's never going to happen, there goes all of Judaism. So if you're not going to take that road, the other road, the only two roads are, it's got to happen now. Because it doesn't make sense that, oh, and in 100 years from now, that's when something is going to happen that's going to make the difference. So, and that's why, going back to my question, I see some more people joined. I don't know who iPhone is, but hello, Dina, that we were talking about. Last week, we discussed the criterion of Mashiach. And we went through this and reviewed it quickly today, that why does Rambam give these criterion? He's not giving the criterion for us to know who Mashiach is when we have the complete revelation of Mashiach. We don't need to open up a Rambam then. We will all see, the whole world will know who Melech HaMashiach is. So what's it for? It's for Golos. It's for now to identify. And why do we need to identify it? So Yael actually said, because it gives us hope. And I thought that was a very good answer. Elise also gave me the answer, but I'm saying I really, that answer really resonated inside of me, that when you identify someone, it just makes it that much more real. Any other thoughts on why it would be important to identify now in Golos Mashiach before he's revealed to the world?
If once Mashiach comes, we no longer have the same bechira because we have complete clarity with everything. So we no longer have the same schar and onus situation that we have right now. So the more we're sort of alerted to potential Mashiach, then the more concrete what we have to do and be masaking within ourselves is, and the more we do it. Because if something just seems like maybe someday and it's just nebulous, then it's sort of like thinking about preparing for Pesach literally right after Pesach ends. Like it'll be there someday in a year. And, whereas when you have like a very concrete sense of, oh, wow, I can identify, maybe it's this person. Maybe I better really get myself together. I really have to do this tshuva. I have to, then it catalyzes a different call to action.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in other words, you're going a different but similar road to Yael. Yael said hope, and you're saying like, whoa, I got to start working on myself. So her hope, Mashiach's coming. I got to start working on myself. Mashiach's coming. But both of you are saying is it makes it more real. That's in essence what both of you are saying in different words is knowing, being able to point to the presumed Mashiach makes it more real, and therefore you have hope. Makes it more real, and therefore you start working on yourself because you're like, wait, once Mashiach comes, wherever I am, I'll never be able to. I wouldn't say we continue growing when Mashiach comes. You shouldn't feel like all your growth is done. It's not. But we can't jump. The ability to jump is exclusively now. So all the jumps you need, all the big pushes you want to do to utilize the time, yes, I better make it happen. Mashiach's coming now. That is very true. Those are both very, very true expressions of Mashiach is real. I can be hopeful. Mashiach is real. I better work on myself. Anyone else?
I also have another idea,
Mm-hmm.
if I may, that if every geula is really tied, and there's a whole sikha from the Alter Rebbe that all geula is really tied to the original geula of Yetzias Mitzrayim, that it all started then, both personal and for the klal. So if that's the case, then if we look back to what happened with Yetzias Mitzrayim, even though it seemed like the Kates happened so fast, it was actually over a year's time that the Makos were taking place, and over a year's time that Moshe was speaking to us, the nation, and speaking to Parai, and that we saw what was taking place. So there were like these, it wasn't just signs and wonders, but there was an ongoing conversation about what was happening for those people to actively choose to do things. And I would think that if that is the original starting point of all geula, then it must also be like a chain of seeing the event, seeing the hashgacha pratis in a very real, concrete way, having conversation about it, being able to point to different things and people, and that there has to be that similarity. I would think.
Well, that makes sense. It's interesting you're mentioning that just this week's Parshas B'Shalach, is when the Jews actually get out. And yes, this is a concept that says, Ki meitzeschem eretz Mitzrayim or enu niflos. Like the days that you left Egypt, I will show you wonders, which means that the wonders of Mashiach will be, in a sense, parallel or comparable to the wonders of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And it says about Yetzias Mitzrayim, this week's Parsha, Chamushim. The Jews left Mitzrayim Chamushim. And Rashi says, what's chamushim? And he says it's from the word chamish, 5, because as we know, the famous midrash, that only 1/5, 20% of the Jews got out, and 4/5, 80% of the Jews died during Makas Choshech. Who are the 80% that died? The ones that didn't believe. The ones that didn't believe in Mesiras HaGeula, that didn't believe Mashiach was coming, they all died. It says they died in Malchus Choshes, so the Egyptians shouldn't say, oh, the Jews are dying too. You see, it's not their God. We're all dying here, as we all know that midrash. And then he gives another explanation. Chamushim means armed, fortified. They went out with supplies, so to speak. They're going to a desert, and they went out with armament. As we see, they have wars in the desert. How did they have army to fight? How do they have arms to fight those wars? Chamushim, they went out with arms. There's a midrash, the midrash that Rashi is basing that on. I mean, if you think of what Rashi is saying realistically, like I was talking about before, being realistic, that's such a tragic midrash. Because we know, if they're talking about just the men over age 20, because women are always believers, so probably all the women got out. But the 600,000 men, if that was 20%, that means like 2,400,000 Jews didn't make it out, right? If 600,000 is 20%, almost 2.5 million, 2,400,000 are the 80% that died. That's an insane number of people that didn't believe and died. If you actually look in the midrash, it's even worse, because the midrash gives a few options. One option is only 20% got out, 1 in 5, or the midrash says chamusha means 1 in 50. For every 50 Jews, 1 was a true believer, which would mean it's not 2,400,000 that died. It's 24 million that died. And there's another version in the midrash that says 1 in 500 got out. For every 500 Jews, only 1 believed. And as you're saying, Eliza, this is after some 9 months of the Makkah. Still, 499 didn't believe, which would mean it would be 240 million that died. We can't even, those numbers like are beyond our capacity to fathom. But this is what it says. On this, Lubavitcher Rebbe gives a talk many years ago. I thought it was just going on your footsteps of recreating the Exodus now. And the Rebbe says, like, this is such a horrible, depressing midrash. Like, what is it trying to tell us? And the Rebbe says, because Mashiach will be like Ulas Mitzrayim, but right. So the midrash says, well, maybe only 1 in 500 got out because 499 were believers. Maybe 1 in 49 got out because 49 out of 50 weren't believers. 1 in 5 got out. 4/5 weren't believers. Chamushim, they were armed. The Rebbe says, what does that mean by Mashiach? That in the beginning, and this is literally what you're talking about, the conversation and the growth and the morphing and the movement. In the beginning, for 1 Jew will believe in like 500. Like Yael was saying, Mashiach, right? What are you talking about? Maybe 1 in 500 Jews will believe. But those true believers will keep believing, and things will happen in the world. Of course, we can relate to this now in the world, and things will shift. And then instead of 1 in 500 believing, 1 in 50 will believe. Well, it's not still great. I mean, for every 50 Jews, only 1 believes and 49 don't, but that's a lot better than 1 in 500. And then, again, those true believers, now a lot more, they'll keep believing, they'll keep pushing it, promoting it, believing in it, and things will happen in the world, and the numbers will shift even more. And now 1 in 5 will believe. For every Jew, maybe 4 don't, but the 5th one will. That's not a lot, but it's a lot more than 1 in 50, which is a lot more than 1 in 500. And then the Rebbe says, ultimately, we'll get to the other explanation in the Midrash, that Chamusha means armed, because every single Jew will believe. So it's interesting if you think that this talk of the Rebbe, there was a long time ago, like, so where are we holding now in the world view? I think, I mean, I could be wrong, obviously, but so much has happened in our world. Like, our world is insane. I know when we have the complete revelation of Mashiach, I'm sure someone's going to write Megillah Hageulah, and they'll say all these things we've been going through, and like, oh my gosh, you guys didn't know Mashiach was coming? Like, oh my gosh, look what you went through. From every direction, it's bombarding you that Mashiach's coming. So I hope by now we're somewhere up to that final chamushim of every Jew believes, because I'm sure many more than 20%, which would be 1 in 5, many more than 20%, I hope, should be part of those believers, that everything we've gone through, everything we're going through, everything we're currently experiencing, Mashiach's coming.